Good morning. My name is Linda Plummer, and I am delighted to join you all today to discuss the introduction of this very important bill, because I feel strongly about this on many different levels. Personally, I was a federal government employee for many years and have intimate knowledge about how powerless one can feel as a federal government employee on the wrong side of the fence of an employer as imposing as the federal government. It can be quite daunting and seem like an insurmountable task for a single person to prevail in such a situation. Because I know this, I was there when the No Fear Coalition had its first meeting, March, and have been an ardent supporter of this cause for several years now. Also, as a former president of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People of Montgomery County, I learned of many instances of discrimination that minority employees face in the workplace. This simply should not be happening in 2008. As a country, we face too many challenges globally and cannot afford to remain stuck in the past of a fractured and discriminatory society. I am pleased that my great Congressman Al Wynn has chosen to introduce this bill today on the following birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King, because it urges us to remember that all Americans have the right to freedom and liberty under the law. This is not just an empty rhetoric, but a very valid point. I thank all of you for being here today, and I'm glad that you all will have had opportunity to hear some unfortunate and egregious stories from the whistleblowers here today in an effort to bring this unfortunate situation to light. My congressman is the champion of the working class people. I salute he and Congressman Van Hollen today because they understand that injustice for one of us is injustice to all of us. Thank you for this day.
Before we have our last scheduled presentation on where we go from here, and Congressman Wynn closes out the presentations, I want to have you, the press, to know that there's a question and answer period. After this, I want the press to ask a question of Matthew Falk. What happened? And give us the reason for going on from here. Will you kindly welcome Ariel Myers, who is a great worker for our coalition and who is of good news.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for coming. I want to thank God, and I want to thank Dr. Martin Luther King, because without his dream, I would not probably be standing here today. Thank you, Congressman Wynn, and all your colleagues for your support of the No Fear Coalition and the many bills on whistleblower protection and civil rights that come before you. I am here today to announce the second historic No Fear Institute conference in May of this year. And so I invite all of you all to come and bring your friends and family to this important event. There will be many workshops and training sessions and programs planned that will focus on issues of fairness for both the civil rights filers and whistleblowers within the federal government and contractors who receive federal funds. We are all working toward the same goal of creating a federal government free of discrimination, retaliation, and censorship, and one that is safe for all workers to speak out when they witness corruption, racism, and sexism. The No Fear Coalition and a group of Make It Safe members will be having this conference on May the 12th through the 16th. You'll hear more about it later, but please mark your calendars and be prepared to attend. Thank you.
Please now present the shining light of our struggle in the present age. Congressman Al Wynn.
Very gracious in his superlatives. I just want to thank everyone for coming. I really appreciated hearing the testimony in particular because it really highlights some of the things that make this an important piece of legislation. You heard from medical personnel who are saying this is impacting the quality of care. Heard people talk about security matters. This affects our nation's national security. Heard people talk about patents and the fact that the very scientific developments that we need to make this country great are being undermined by these forces. And so I do think this is an important piece of legislation. I represent between 72,000 and 80,000 federal employees. I think Chris and I and probably Sting always argue about who has the most federal employees. I do. But, and by the way, my father worked for the Department of Agriculture, which I see is not doing too terribly well. So I know a little bit about how you feel. But the point today, folks, is this is an important issue. It's important because it affects people personally. The personal horror stories attached to this legislation that makes it necessary. It's also important because it affects the very fiber of our government. If we in Congress cannot get input on national security, on patents, on health expenditures, then we are wasting the taxpayers' money and compromising, sadly, on our own national security. So thank you again. I look forward to continuing to work with this. I've already talked to John Conyers, who's one of the chairmen, probably the lead chairman, who will be dealing with this legislation. And I think Walter said he's ready. He's ready. And so between judiciary and government operations, I think we have a very favorable chairman who will give us a good hearing and we can move this bill forward. And I look forward to working with you to bring this bill into law. Thank you very much.
Into the question and answer period by asking two persons to come up to be questioned first. I want Matthew Fogg to stand up, and I want Renee Berry to come forward, and I want the press to ask her what happened. Come on.
What did happen?
I'm so glad you know something.
Can't tell nobody. First, I want to give honor to God and be able to stand here in front of all of you, because truly that's who allows us to be where we are today. And to go through the things that we've gone through. Most of you know me, I'm a United States Marshal. I've been fighting the system for a long time for discrimination issues. And back in 1985, sad to say, I filed an EEO complaint against the Justice Department. And I was just looking at it, I was thinking about it, I said, it's gone through 7 United States Attorney Generals. Talking about Meese, Thornburg, Reno, and I can't even name them all, but from all the way back to now, there's 7 United States Attorney Generals. That's an abomination, ladies and gentlemen, too, especially when you think about the fact that in 1998, a jury of our peers here in Washington, D.C. found that the United States Marshal Service under the U.S. Department of Justice was guilty of racism and discrimination. In my particular case, for $4 million, the jury awarded me, and found not only did it affect me, and this was a single case, said not only did it affect me, but it affected the whole, every United States Marshal, black, African-American Deputy United States Marshal working in the U.S. Marshal's Office, said it was a racial hostile environment. As a matter of fact, I got it to memory what Judge Jackson said in the case. He said the jury obviously inferred from the endemic atmosphere of racial disharmony and mistrust that all explanations were suspect, and that occult racism was more likely the reason than any other for Fogg's misadventures in the Marshal Service hiring. Now, when you look at that, and that's 1998, and the Justice Department continued, under the U.S. Marshal Service, continued to appeal this case up until today. Yes. We're working on nearly 10 years of appeals. But to God be the glory, the Court of Appeals came back again under two U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals decisions. They came back in June and they said,